Welcome to this week's edition of the Poke Report. I'm Katie Parrish.
And I'm Mason Doherty. Thank you for joining us. Coming up, we'll talk about wrestlers making weight, a track athlete consistently breaking records, and the strategy of shift changes in baseball. But first, let's get to basketball in the beginning of the NCAA tournament.
That's right, Mason. The Ratings Percentage Index, or RPI, is a tool commonly used to rank teams with big dance aspirations. Zach Logston breaks down the concept behind the numbers.
The college basketball regular season is over, and now it's time to dissect the resumes of the bubble teams. For the next week, everyone from Jerry Palm to Jerry from down the street will argue about quality wins against bad losses, and that's simple enough. They will argue about the strengths of respective conferences, which is easy to understand. And then they will claim a team with a great record doesn't have a very good RPI and doesn't deserve a shot at the tournament. Wait a second. What is RPI?
The RPI is a pretty simple measure of strength of schedule and how a team does against its schedule. So it's 25% your own record, 50% your opponent's record, 25% your opponent's record. So 3/4 of it is strength of schedule, and then 25% how you did against that schedule.
Now, that may seem confusing, but it can be simplified. Take it into 3 parts. Part 1, win your games. Simple enough. Part 2, play good teams, and even better if you can beat those teams. And Part 3, play good teams that play other good teams.
Now, to gain an even more in-depth understanding of RPI, let's look at OSU's. Now, here we have our standard RPI equation, but instead of random letters, I filled in Oklahoma State's statistics. Oklahoma State is 18-12. That's a 60% winning percentage. You take a fourth of that, and you get .15. Now, secondly, their opponents' winning percentage. Oklahoma State's opponents have gone 478 and 336. That's a winning percentage of 59.5%, and half of that is .298. Finally, opponents' winning percentage, and this is where the numbers get big. Oklahoma State's opponents have gone 12,573 and 9,498. But simplified, that's a 57% winning percentage, a fourth of that, .142. Now you add those 3 numbers together and you get .59. That is Oklahoma State's RPI number, which ranks 45th in the country.
It's important to remember that this statistic doesn't guarantee or even predict tournament seeding accurately.
If they were trying to use the RPI to make decisions, then those things would matter more. The fact that they're not using the RPI to make decisions, gives them the flexibility to have something that's a little bit less sophisticated as more of a guideline than a decision maker.
Palm has Notre Dame ranked as a 3 seed, or more simply, one of the top 12 teams in the country, but they rank only 25th in RPI. That's because the RPI doesn't factor in that the Irish don't have a bad loss, or that they have a 9-5 record against the RPI Top 100. There are flaws in the statistic. It sometimes takes whom you play into account more than if you win or lose that game. It doesn't factor in margin of victory, injuries, or suspensions at the time of games. It also doesn't count games against Division II teams. So if you were wondering why your team is playing a community college or two in the preseason, that would be why. But this isn't the old BCS rankings. The RPI is just another tool that the selection committee uses to create this tournament.
Generally speaking, the better you are in the RPI, the higher you're going to be seeded. I mean, there are definite trends in that direction, but there's always exceptions. They don't just throw the top 68 teams in a bracket and seed them. That's just not how it works.
And this brings us back to Oklahoma State. The Cowboys are considered to be in the field, even with losses at TCU and Texas Tech in their past few games, and an RPI that would place them squarely on the bubble. Their inclusion is due in large part to the eye test. Each committee member has seen that OSU beat Kansas and swept Baylor and Texas. Those 5 wins are as good or better than any other team on the tournament bubble. They're almost locked up, and a win against OU in the Big 12 tournament would lock up a spot for the Cowboys. For the Poke Report, I'm Zach Logston.
As we enter and conclude major conference tournaments, the RPI is updated almost daily. The top 5 teams based on RPI are Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, Virginia, and Villanova.
Playing in a tough conference goes a long way in boosting a team's RPI. The Big 12 Conference has the best RPI, followed by the likes of the Big East, the ACC, and the Big Ten. Mitch Brown joins us with how this is affecting Big 12 teams that are sitting on the bubble. Mitch?
Thanks, Mason. It's one of the most competitive leagues in America and is commonly acknowledged as the best conference. 8 teams in the Big 12 have been ranked in the top 25 since the start of 2015. I took a look at some of the stats behind the recent surge of the Big 12.
The Oklahoma State Cowboys have lost 5 of their last 6 conference games, but they're still attempting to tie their dancing shoes. But how can a team with a sub-500 conference record still make the NCAA tournament? It's because the Big 12 is commonly acknowledged as the best conference in the NCAA this year. One of the many reasons the Big 12 is having success is because of its non-conference record. The Big 12 has posted an astounding 82.7 winning percentage. This is the highest percentage of any league since the 2004-2005 season. Comparing to the other Power 5 conferences, the Big 12 is 6% higher than any other conference. CBS bracketologist Jerry Palm says the Big 12 is the strongest league top to bottom this year.
It's been really good outside the league, which is where conferences prove themselves, is outside the league, and the Big 12 did a really good job of that this year.
According to Big12Sports.com, the Big 12 has had one team nationally ranked every week since the conference began in 1996. 7 of the 10 Big 12 schools are currently ranked in the top 20 for strength of schedule. The Big 12 has had an impact on the RPI rankings as well, with 7 schools currently ranked in the top 45. Every team in the conference has at least one win over a top 25 opponent. With the strength of the Big 12 as a whole, OSU men's basketball coach Travis Ford says he's not surprised when there could be a so-called upset.
I don't think there's many I don't know of any that can compare to it at this point. For what we have to go through game by game for 2 months or so.
Home court advantage has played a predominant role in the Big 12 this year. Every team in the conference has its own version of a loud and chaotic environment, which can make it even more difficult to play and also win. The Big 12 has won 69% of their home games during conference play. These kinds of stats make players like TCU guard Kean Anderson realize how harsh playing on the road can be.
It's the momentum of everything that's different arenas and crowds have to do with it, especially in this league. So it's just tough to get one on the road here in the Big 12.
When opposing teams walk out of these doors and onto this court, they know they're in for a battle. But Oklahoma State isn't the only court they have to worry about. Every arena in the Big 12 is exactly like this.
The Big 12 has the hardest strength of schedule compared to the other Power 5 conferences with an average of 30. The ACC is right behind the Big 12 with an average of 41. The Big 12 also has a better RPI ranking compared to the other Power 5 conferences. The success of the Big 12 on the court has bracketologists going crazy, especially during the month of March. Jerry Palm says the Big 12 should expect multiple schools to make the NCAA tournament.
There are at least 6 tournament quality teams that are, a few of them are locks, and there's a couple that would just have to absolutely, collapse to fall out at this point.
However, not every expert is on board with the Big 12 being the best conference. Some say the fact that the Big 12 only has 10 teams makes it weaker. The problem with this argument is that larger conferences tend to have weaker teams at the bottom. The Big 12 doesn't have that this year. The round-robin schedule means that every team plays each other twice during the season. This fact has many experts saying that the conference schedule prepares its teams better for the NCAA tournament. For the Poke Report, I'm Mitch Brown.
Although it is likely that the Big 12 will see 6 teams make the NCAA tournament, it's also a possibility that we could see 7. Oklahoma State and Texas will be biting their nails come Selection Sunday when their fate is finally revealed.
Mitch, some of the teams on the bubble include BYU, Temple, Miami, and Texas A&M. Is the fact that most of those teams are not playing in a top conference hurting them?
Well, with BYU, they have a lot of firepower, ranking 2nd for points per game, but they also beat Gonzaga at home, and being in the same conference, that's going to help boost their resume. So they could be in the first 4 in. But also Texas A&M, they don't really have a lot of bad losses per se. And Temple, they have a lot of good wins, especially versus Kansas, which is going to help boost their resume. And then Miami, they beat Duke at Duke big time. And that's going to really boost their resume. But they also had a lot of bad conference losses. For example, when they lost to Georgia Tech at home.
Well, we'll be sure to keep an eye on that, Mitch. Thanks.
This late into the basketball season, many players' bodies can start to wear down, which can lead to an increase in injuries. Some injuries can be as minor as a rolled ankle, but others can have a lasting impact. In fact, one injury has recently hit the forefront of conversation for many sports. I took a look at why concussions in football and basketball are affecting the sports today more than ever.
Good! By George, the dream is alive!
As NBC sports commentator Bob Costas said, sports are the candy store of life. The passion, the tradition, the rivalry. But athletes soon find that the price tag for playing sports may be more dangerous than they thought. More than 300,000 concussions happen in all levels of sports every year, and it can happen to anyone in any level of sport.
The mechanism of a concussion is when the brain rotates on the brainstem and bangs up against the cranium inside or the skull.
Let's try an experiment. This egg represents your brain, the glass represents your skull, and the water inside represents your brain matter. When a concussion occurs, your brain bangs up against your skull. When I shake this jar, it will simulate what happens inside your head when a concussion occurs. Now let's take a look at the egg. As you can see, there are cracks all over the egg. Now just imagine if this was your brain. In recent years, concussions have made their way to the spotlight. Football is garnering most of the attention, and Dr. Ivan says that is attributed to the violent nature of the sport. A head-to-head collision between two players can exhibit up to 100 Gs of force. And in the NFL, the speed of an impact can be up to 20 miles per hour. But are all football players at risk? Studies say yes, but the frequency is due to the player's position. Skill players, particularly offensive skill players, are more prone to concussion-causing impacts than the big men up front. No matter the position, concussions affect every player long after the final whistle.
It's grabbed the attention because we're finding out more about the neurological parts of it and how the long-term effects of concussions can have on athletes, not just 2 years down the road, but 20 years down the road.
Shortly after a mild traumatic brain injury, athletes can experience a range of symptoms, most concerning post-concussive syndrome, which can last up to 1 year after impact. But some symptoms can last far longer than that. Former NFL players that suffered from concussions suffer from lifelong effects from their playing days. The most common, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, or CTE, a degenerative dementia-like brain disease. CTE has been found in 14 out of 15 brains of former NFL athletes studied at the Boston University School of Medicine. Even with all the information we have now, it's not just the players that are left wondering about the safety of the game.
It's a tough question. It takes a lot of patience in thinking through it, and certainly it's one that I think probably each individual family has to answer on their own accord, given the circumstances.
For the Polk Report, I'm Katie Parrish.
Davis is going to run it all the way back.
Concussions can affect anyone at any level of play. This is forcing leagues on multiple levels to enforce concussion protocol.
Wrestling takes a toll on the mind as well as their bodies. The Oklahoma State wrestling team learns more than just taking down an opponent on the mat. Kyle Mush takes a look at the dietary aspect of the sport.
It is a misconception that wrestlers go to extremes to keep their weight under control when they are preparing for a match. On the contrary, wrestlers try to keep their diet as simple as possible. Much of their training and practice allows them to drop weight rapidly because of the intensity that practice entails. Redshirt sophomore Kyle Crutchmer doesn't need to diet regularly because he monitors his weight frequently and has a routine that allows him to do so.
Everyone has their own twist to, what they eat and how they eat and what time they eat. I try not to eat past, about 7:30, 8. I like to, I work out extra at night so I can get my weight down.
Not every wrestler knows how to maintain their weight as well as Crutchmer does. Some need coaching from the staff to make sure they get the proper nutrition. But Associate Head Coach Eric Guerrero says it's not a problem with eating habits, it's a lifestyle habit.
What did wrestling teach us? Did it teach us to crash our weight down and do everything wrong, or did it just teach you to live within moderation? Did it teach you to live within boundaries, to have self-restraint?
Many pantries and refrigerators of college students may contain some of these items, but a wrestler needs to have foods such as lean meats and green leafy vegetables to be able to eat as healthy as possible and not to be slowed down by too many processed foods.
Making weight is a large part of the sport, but head coach John Smith's main priority is to develop young men to have healthy habits.
It's not just about making weight, it's about living a healthy lifestyle of what you're eating and what you're taking into your body. So I make it a little bit more important than just making weight. It's a bigger issue than just making weight.
Not all wrestlers need to diet to get to a certain weight. Redshirt junior Austin Marsden wrestles as a heavyweight, so he only needs to maintain his weight. Although he doesn't need to diet, he abides by what Coach Smith implements with healthy habits.
I try to eat clean as possible and just, try not to eat anything that will slow me down or hurt my performance.
People who don't understand the sport think that wrestlers purge their systems to manipulate their weight. This is simply untrue. For the Poke Report, I'm Kyle Mutch.
The Cowboy baseball team powered through a brutal non-conference schedule that included games against Arizona State, Illinois, and Oregon State. With conference play right around the corner, they'll need to continue to put up good numbers.
OSU is in the top 3 in the Big 12 in team pitching and team batting. Many Cowboys are also in the top 5 in individual categories.
Baseball is one of the more statistic-heavy sports in college athletics. Statistics change every year, and it's often hard to keep up with all the data. Justin Packard takes us on a look inside the numbers of Cowboy baseball.
Numbers are everywhere in baseball, and it takes years of experience to make sense of it all. For head coach Josh Holliday, everything depends on the stats. Recruiting, games, even the lineup. Holliday says stats are sometimes more helpful than watching game footage.
Stats tell a lot of the story. I mean, there can be a lot of information in a stat if enough at-bats and enough pitches are accumulated to really have some depth to the information.
When recruiting, Holliday takes the statistics with a grain of salt. Junior college players are some of the only players with enough experience to make the stats trustworthy.
Junior college players, statistics matter. High school players, they mean nothing. Every good player in high school has big statistics.
One new junior college transfer on the team is infielder Kevin Bradley, who is second on the team with a .406 batting average and 10 RBIs. Another new addition to the team is freshman Jacob Chappell. Chappell is a prime example of the inflated stats Holliday talked about. He hit .469 his senior year with 40 RBIs and 32 extra base hits. He said pitching has been the most difficult thing to adjust to.
I'm not gonna lie, I was nervous. I was so nervous the first few games, and just seeing, velocity's a lot better. Most of the bats you only get to see one pitch that is a good pitch to hit.
When a player steps into the batter's box, balls are coming in at more than 80 miles an hour. It takes hours of practice to perfect the timing and win games. That's why the Cowboys' Big 12 run last year shows just how deep the roster went. The Big 12 is one of college baseball's strongest conferences, but only one statistic matters at the end of the season: wins. Wins come down to the offensive stats, and last year the Cowboys led the Big 12 in home runs, walks, and total runs. The Cowboys lost 2 of the more explosive bats from last season in Tanner Kreidemeyer and Zach Fish, but are still producing at a high level. And the arrival of some junior college transfers and some talented freshmen should help them defend their Big 12 title. For the Poke Report, I'm Justin Packard.
The Cowboys are 10-6 and lead the Big 12 in some interesting statistics. OSU is currently first with 28 stolen bases and 90 walks. One of the leaders on the team this season, Tim Arakawa, is second with 18 runs scored this season.
A baseball strategy can make a big impact in the outcome of a game. Some see defensive shifts as a major part of the game, others do not. Jonathan Holden takes a look at what major changes could be happening to baseball.
America's pastime, a game that many people watch and enjoy. However, there are elements average fans don't understand. One of those elements is the defensive shift, and it's under fire. Basic shifts have been employed for a while. Bringing the infield in to save a run, pushing back the fielders into a no-doubles alignment, or the shortstop and second baseman getting into double play position are not the shifts that are in jeopardy. It's the use of the overshift that's the perceived problem.
When the overshift is used against an extreme pull hitter, they're forced to hit the ball down this way towards left field instead of pulling the ball this way.
Drastic shifts are far less frequent in college. It's impossible to have an in-depth scouting report on every NCAA team, so it's harder to get a good idea of which batters to use the shift on. ESPN researcher and writer Mark Simon says that defensive shifts are used much more in the major leagues, though I think you will see an increase in the college game as more data becomes available to teams. In the highly competitive Big 12, teams look for any advantage they can get. College pitchers have more trouble hitting their spots, which makes it difficult for a defensive shift to be successful. However, OSU head coach Josh Holliday will use a shift under the right circumstances.
If we know a lot about a batter, we may choose to be more aggressive with a shift, but sometimes you don't know a ton about the other team. It's hard to be overly aggressive with a shift until you have a lot of data to support such a move.
The new commissioner of the MLB, Rob Manfred, has pitched the idea of banning the overshift. If this takes place in the pros, it will most likely be banned in college as well. This would slightly benefit hitters because teams would no longer be able to take advantage of their tendency to pull the ball. According to the president of Baseball Info Solutions, aggressive shifting can help a team earn 20 extra outs per year in net. Sometimes it works against the team, but it helps far more often than it hurts. Overall, we've seen the shift can lower batting averages on grounders and short line drives by about 30 points. For now, teams will still employ the overshift in hopes of getting ahead. For the Poke Report, I'm Jonathan Holden.
Rod Manfred's banning of defensive shifts have been met with controversy and criticism. Manfred anticipates getting rid of defensive shifts will lead to more scoring to satisfy more fans that want more offense.
The Oklahoma State softball team is in the middle of the longest homestand they'll have this season. It all leads up to a tough trip out west and a series against Utah Valley and BYU. But we've all faced adversity, especially when we first came to college. It's a different lifestyle and we learn to make changes. But is it the same for athletes? Katie Cox talked with Megan Lively, who went through the process last year.
It's no secret that intimidation comes easily once you're a freshman in college, especially when you're a freshman athlete at a Division I university. You're in a new place with new people, and the coaches are pointing out all the changes you need to make. While some athletes can't take the heat, some accept the challenge and come out better than they were before. At least, that's what happened with OSU softball's sophomore pitcher, Megan Lively. Lively came from Monroe, Louisiana, and made 13 appearances as a freshman, while ending her season with a 6.56 ERA. However, it didn't take long for Lively to get the hang of college softball, and OSU head coach Rick Welleming says it hasn't gone unnoticed.
Megan has grown unbelievable from her freshman year, sophomore year. I can't be more proud of her in the way she's carrying herself now, the way she's approaching the game, and the way she's pitching. She's pitching, she's getting better and better every game.
Lively started her sophomore season by cutting her ERA in half by leading the fall squad with 1.12 ERA. She also held her opposing hitters to a .179 average at the plate and allowed only 4 earned runs in 25 innings. So, what is Lively throwing that these hitters can't make contact with? Whether it's her curveball or changeup, her speed is what shuts her opponents down.
Throwing hard, I guess, is my talent or my thing. So I really love when I jam someone. It's kind of like that awesome got 'em type feeling.
Lively's speed has already helped her record 2 shutouts this season and leads the team with 22 strikeouts. Superstitions tend to be a necessity to many athletes. Some might write a message in the dirt or wear a certain necklace, but when it comes to Lively, it's her hair.
I will wear the same bow and the same hairstyle. You see my French braid and my sparkly bow every single game until something goes wrong, and then it'll change.
While some athletes take a couple years to adjust to the college level of sports, it's clear that Lively plans on wasting no time. For the Poke Report, I'm Katie Cox.
Lively has started 8 games this season with a record of 2-5 and an ERA of 4.51. The pitcher will have a chance to improve on her stats with Arkansas Pine Bluff visiting this weekend.
The Big 12 is dominating in men's tennis rankings with 3 schools from the conference in the top 10. Oklahoma and Baylor first and second respectively, with Texas ranked 8th.
The 37th ranked Cowboys are looking to get back in the top 25 after falling to Minnesota. The men's tennis team recently earned a 5-0 victory over Villanova, with Jacob Suden sealing the match.
Suden's had a long trip from Germany to Stillwater. Although he's here to play tennis, it has not always been a major part of his life. I got to sit down with him and talk about his past.
Some players have a natural gift. One player in particular didn't even grow up playing tennis. He didn't even start playing in the U.S. until after high school. Meet Jacob Suden from Friedrichshafen, Germany. He grew up in a family with pro volleyball players. Suden wasn't introduced to tennis until he was 14.
Because when I was a kid, I was very active, and so my parents just sent me in this one camp, and I got a tennis lesson.
He decided at 15 to play only tennis after he won the Tennis German Championship for his age group. Suden decided to play at OSU after high school instead of turning pro in Europe. He realized there was a big difference between German tennis and NCAA tennis.
Then I came here and it was just, the level was so high, so much competition, and it was the right decision to come here.
With Suden now a senior, Coach Jay Owadia has noticed a trait in Suden that he looks for when recruiting.
Known him to be a very personable, outgoing person, but when he really came on the team, he's a guy who really embraces OSU.
So when Jacob first started playing tennis, he really liked the fact that he could be independent on the court and not to rely on other teammates, unlike his first sport, volleyball. Little did he know how much he would learn to love doubles more. He says it works to his advantage to be able to use the entire court.
There I could use more of my strengths, more serves, more return, and more reaction.
Sudin and his partner Arjun Kade became the first Cowboys doubles team to reach the NCAA Doubles Championship semifinals. They complement each other well. Sudin says he likes his backhand shot, while Kade likes the forehand. Kade says their relationship on the court is a key to their success.
With him, it's a lot easier because he's a really friendly guy, and it's really open, like nothing. If he doesn't like something, he tells me. If I don't like something about him, I tell him.
The doubles tandem is ranked 17th in the nation so far this season. For the Poke Report, I'm Mason Doherty. 92nd ranked Sudin is in his final season with the OSU tennis team. Sudin will lead the Cowboys doubles as they host Memphis and Pepperdine next week.
Another OSU athlete is continuing to excel, this time in track and field. English native Nick Miller has continued to log milestones and records since arriving at OSU 3 years ago. Olivia Cummings got the chance to talk to the 5-time All-American thrower.
The Cowboy track and field team has made a name for itself throughout the years, bringing home titles and stamping its name on the top polls. But one name specifically hasn't been given the credit that is due. Nick Miller, OSU's hammer thrower, is the collegiate leader in hammer throw and is well on his way to becoming an Olympic athlete. Born in Carlisle, England, Miller was introduced to the sport by one of his old PE teachers. Little did he know the sport would soon turn into a career path that would take him the distance.
I like individual sports. I don't really like relying on people. So it really appealed to me, and what I put in, I get back.
Back in Stillwater, Oklahoma, throwing coach for OSU track and field John Bauman was looking for more depth in a short-handed throwing side of the team.
It's not a glamorous event by no means. We're always way out, away from everybody. A lot of times we're the first ones to the track and the last ones to leave.
But Bauman saw that interest, strength, and drive in Miller and subsequently traveled to England to meet with him face-to-face.
He just wanted to become good. And here, you know, we don't have tons of throwers, and at that time, we just needed somebody that was going to get it done.
Miller has definitely proven to be a great addition to the Cowboy legacy. In 2012, he became the first Cowboy to win the Big 12 championship in the hammer throw since 1901.
This year, the World Championships, I figure I need to do well there, make a name for myself, leading into the Olympics. And it's just kind of, I don't like people saying, you know, you can't throw 80 meters because you're only 21 years old. So this year I really kind of set my sights on what I want to do, and I've been working hard to kind of prove people wrong.
So far, during his time at OSU, he's become a 5-time All-American, won the Big 12 Conference Championship 3 times in a row, placed in the top 5 nationally, and represented his country in the Junior World Championships in Barcelona. And he doesn't plan on stopping there. His journey is far from over. Once he graduates in 2016, Nick's goals include grabbing the world record and one day competing in the Olympics. For the Poke Report, I'm Olivia Cummings.
The Big 12 champion in weight throwing will wrap up the season in Arkansas, looking to add a national title to his accolades. He looks to improve on his second-place finish in the 2014 Indoor National Championships.
And that's all the time we have on this edition of the Poke Report. We hope to see you again as we continue coverage of Oklahoma State athletics. I'm Mason Doherty.
And I'm Katie Parrish. Make sure to visit the Poke Report website for more OSU sports news. Thanks for watching.